The best way to learn about animal behavior is to observe animals systematically.
You know, most of the time when we're in a situation and we're observing just as part of our daily lives, the kind of observing we do is usually, especially if we're untrained, it's what we'd call unsystematic.
So when a person watches an animal, they typically focus on what's most interesting to them or what's most obvious, the flashy behaviors.
But when we do systematic observations, what we do is try to get a better picture of what's happening most of the time or to most of the individuals and understand the rare behaviors and the behaviors of the quieter individuals as well, or the activities done in the quieter times.
So it helps to make you more systematic and causes you to pay attention to all the elements of their behavior as opposed to just being attracted to what's the most interesting thing going on in front of you.
Instead of just letting our background and what excites us the most or what's loudest catch our attention, we have ways to try to be systematic, try to plan, to try to get all the activities. And you do that either by scanning the group systematically and getting everybody, or if you want really the details of what's going on, you'd plan ahead of time to spend maybe 5 or 10 minutes with each individual. And you'd plan ahead of time, what do I think are all the important behaviors to answer the question I have?
Well, one of the benefits of learning systematic observation techniques is that it helps us to think through the whole context of a situation and to not bias what we are seeing or believing about an animal or a situation based on one event. So in everyday life, these types of techniques has helped me to be more aware of all the components that may be influencing a single event or a specific situation.
The most useful way to observe animals is to sample their behavior, either for a limited period of time or for brief intervals. Now, you're going to practice two of the most common methods for observing behavior, systematically and scientifically. One method of animal observation is called scan sampling. It's like taking a series of snapshots. You do it quickly and at predetermined intervals. For example, every 30 seconds or every 5 minutes. You always observe in the same direction or in the same order, then write down what the animal is doing at that instant. You can use this method to observe a single animal or a large group of animals. Remember, scan sampling is useful when you want to know how animals spend their time. These are meerkats in the Fragile Desert exhibit at Brookfield Zoo. They share their exhibit with a family of African crested porcupines, and Mike Brown is doing a research study on them. Mike is using scan sampling to observe the behavior of the meerkats. Every 30 seconds, he scans the group from left to right. On the behavior checklist, Mike writes down what the animals are doing, how many are playing, feeding, moving around, digging, and so on. He also makes a note of how many sentries he sees. A sentry watches for predators while the others do other things. Sentry behavior is important for survival in the wild. But since meerkats don't have predators at the zoo, researchers want to know whether they still exhibit this behavior. It's time to get out the ethogram and data sheet for the meerkat observation. You're going to use them to scan the meerkats every 30 seconds for 3 minutes, just as Mike is doing. Begin when you hear the beep. The other method of doing behavioral observation is called focal sampling or continuous sampling. Remember, focal sampling is like videotaping an animal. You write down everything the animal does and who it does it with: feeding, grooming, sleeping, mating, whatever. Focal sampling is a good choice when you're interested in social interactions. It gives you a complete record of what an animal did and with whom. These are white-cheeked gibbons from Asia. They live in family groups, and they're an endangered species, like most of the wildlife found in tropical forests. Sue Margulis is doing behavioral observations in Tropic World. Sue is observing the behavior of the gibbons and their new baby Malupre, the first offspring for this pair. This is the mom, Inda, and here's the dad, Benny. Sue is using Malupre as a focal animal, so she writes down everything Malupre does, including when he interacts with the other members of his group, in this case, Inda or Benny. Sue observes Malupre for 15 minutes at a time. Why don't you try observing the gibbons? Get out the provided data sheet and the ethogram. Remember, it's not easy. And it'll get even tougher as Malupre gets older. You'll be watching Malupre for 3 minutes. Begin when you hear the stopwatch beep.
They're biting him. We're not going down there. Here, Jordan, let's go somewhere else.
Haley, look up over here. Look up over there. Over there, see him? Okay, come on. Aww. You gonna keep over there like this?
Anthony, cute, the little yellow one. What?
As you prepare for your field trip to the zoo, think about the observation methods you just learned. Use one or both of them to observe some interesting animals, including people. You'll be surprised by how much you learn, and you'll probably wind up with more questions than answers. But that's what science is all about. The scientists and students and volunteers you've met on this video know that their work is important to the well-being and long-term conservation of the animals they're watching. Observing animals is also a lot of fun for them, just as it can be for you.